We often use the words influential and good interchangeably, suggesting that importance is a proof of quality. And Batman the Killing Joke might just be the most famous Batman comic ever. It was probably one of the only comics I could actually name prior to starting the channel. But after reading it for the first time, I don't think it's one of Batman's best stories. By far, the most surprising part about The Killing Joke for me was the length. I was expecting like a 10-issue epic like The Long Halloween, but it's not even 50 pages, making this the shortest amount of material that I've covered yet. And when you have a story of this length, you really need to make every page count. And Killing Joke's forward momentum makes reading it in any longer than one sitting pretty much impossible. The plot has a really great sense of progression, it just never really takes its foot off the gas. If you're not familiar, the A plot has Batman trying to stop Joker's latest scheme, with the B plot being kind of a Joker origin. Kind of. In the afterword, artist Brian Boland says he likes to think of this as, quote, just one of a number of possible origin stories manifesting itself in the Joker's brain. However, they only show this origin, making this seem a little bit more like a cop-out rather than a deliberately creative choice. So let's talk about that origin. Moore humanizes Joker by depicting him as a struggling comedian whose life pretty much collapses under him before he becomes the clown prince of crime. When I read The Man Who Laughs last year, I was really disappointed in its Joker origin since I felt like it was doing the bare minimum for a character with such immense expectations. He's way more intentional in this story, and comparing the quality of those origins to me is a very clear win for The Killing Joke. But I think it's a bit of a mixed bag. Joker is depicted pretty sympathetically, which has a few downstream impacts that we'll talk about in a bit. Sympathetic villains work best when their antagonistic actions are carried out with their perverse sense of justice. Think of things like Mr. Freeze trying to bring his wife back, or Magneto trying to stop a mutant genocide. When Joker is a normal person and you have his wife saying things like how good he is in the sack, it feels a little bit awkward given the elephant in the room. You cannot talk about this comic without addressing its most controversial element: Joker sexually assaulting Barbara Gordon. I always maintain you can have fucked up things happen in your story if you have a good creative cause. The prime example that I've covered, and honestly the perfect peer to the story, is Grant Morrison and Dave McKean's Arkham Asylum. So why has one aged like fine wine and the other like milk? Harriet Arkham and Barbara Gordon both experience terrible things. Both stories use sexual violence as part of their horror, but one feels like it's interrogating that violence, and the other feels like it's aestheticizing it. Let's get the low-hanging fruit out of the way. Barbara Gordon's assault in this story is only meant to serve the other male characters. She completely disappears from the story after. Never are you treated to her thoughts, her trauma, her agency. It is a huge faux pas. But Harriet also doesn't get those in Arkham Asylum. Her death is so much more integral to the mythos of Arkham Asylum and probably represents the most important layer to the serious house as a whole. I haven't spoken about the art yet, but presentation really matters with stuff like this. Artist Brian Boland said it was incredibly difficult to draw this sequence, but the end result was astonishingly polished and cinematic. I would almost call it sensationalized. I mean, the fucking cover is Joker taking pictures of Barbara right after he does it. Contrast that with Dave McKean's fragmented and expressionistic view of Harriet's face. I don't give this a pass because it was, from a different era or whatever, because Arkham Asylum is only a year younger. The violence feels symbolic, even disturbing. In Arkham Asylum, the reader is meant to be unsettled. And in The Killing Joke, you're invited to linger on that imagery. Let's talk about something the graphic novel does very well: the one bad day theory. The one bad day theory, as I understand it, was invented by the Killing Joke, and it states that anyone is one bad day away from losing their sense of purpose. That life's absurdity and randomness can awaken a twinkle of lunacy in anyone. In Killing Joke, Joker tries to bring this out of Jim Gordon via his daughter's shooting and assault, but is ultimately unsuccessful. The story is pretty clear that the theory is wrong. Both Gordon and Batman have experienced their one bad days and refuse to break. Speaking of Batman, I like his design. Batman is such a nothing character in this story. This is Joker's story, Gordon's moral tests, and even Barbara's tragedy. Batman only really gets to chase the plot. His one bad day is so multifaceted and interesting, but only hinted at the very end. Focusing so much on Gordon instead of Batman is huge wasted potential. Art-wise, I did read the deluxe edition, which includes some updated coloring that Boland originally intended. This is a fun debate. Usually I'm on the side of more color is better, but I think for this story, the more muted style does suit the story that more is telling, which makes the few color choices like Barbara's yellow blouse or Joker's red hood have a lot more weight to them. I really enjoyed the art and have no major complaints. The last thing we need to talk about is the ending, which is probably the second most controversial element. The main conflict, I'd argue, is not really the one bad day theory at all. Instead, it's the nature of Batman and Joker's conflict. Are they doomed to repeat an endless cycle, or do they have the free will to change their circumstance? Batman states multiple times that he fears the only way this ends is with one of them dying. He pleads with Joker to stop the cycle, but Joker can't. It's almost like he's trapped. This rare moment of lucidity is probably my favorite part about the Killing Joke. Joker remarks that the situation reminds him of a joke. Two inmates escape from an asylum. They need to cross from one rooftop to another. The first inmate jumps across and makes it. The second is too afraid. So the first shines his flashlight across the gap, and he says, "Here, walk across this beam." The second replies, "What do you think I am, crazy? You'll just turn it off when I'm halfway across." Batman spends the entire story offering Joker the flashlight, and just like the first inmate, Joker can never trust Batman. In his worldview, beliefs like trust or hope are an illusion. It's funny because Joker in a way proves Batman's point. If Batman can cross the beam, the only one who's actually trapped is Joker himself. In fact, it's so funny that Batman starts laughing. I love this moment because in the face of such tragic absurdity, the only really thing you can do is laugh. And then we go to the last page. Non-verbally, it depicts police lights approaching, rain falling, and finally an empty puddle. A lot of people, famously Grant Morrison in 2013, interpret this as Batman strangling the Joker. You can read the laughter text as transitioning just to Batman's, meaning the Joker is silenced. The title of the Killing Joke becomes very literal, and Batman alludes multiple times the only way this is going to solve is with one of them dying. However, Alan Moore himself has disproved this theory, but in my headcanon, I do like the ambiguity. At the risk of repeating myself, this beautiful moment is deeply undercutted. Batman should not be this emotionally available to Joker after what he just did to Barbara. All in all, I think it's a solid Batman-Joker affair. I like how you can kind of interpret it in a time loop with the first and last panels both being of this rain. I like how Boland himself used him as the model for the Joker taking the picture. And honestly, I get the vibe that this is a little bit more Boland than Moore. Ultimately, I think people talk about the Killing Joke more in terms of what it did for Batman than what it actually is. Before we rate this bad boy, I invite you all to comment, of which I reply to every single one, or at least try to. And if you want to see me read some X-Men next time, be sure to subscribe. Fun fact, if you subscribe, it'll tuck me in, and I'm really cold, so please subscribe. As for the Killing Joke, it is a good story. but it does not go toe-to-toe with the other Batman classics that I've read. While it's beautifully drawn with a memorable ending, dedicating about a third of its already really limited length to the Barbara assault is a little bit too much for me to ignore. Thanks again for subscribing. As for The Killing Joke, it is going to get a 6 out of 10. Have a good one. Peace.